Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I'm your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike the Cranky Fan.
Grump, how's it going? Pretty exhausted after the most insane football day we've had in years. It was great to hang out. We were at some bar in New Jersey. I don't even know where we were, out in Morristown. Great to hang out with all our good buddies. Justin from Talking Giants and Snacks and Wes, and got to hang out with some listeners too. It was great.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, Michael. It was an honor to meet you, dude. Twitter follower, at NWOSTU5. Thanks for saying hi. Shout out to you, my man. But it was fun, and we couldn't have picked a better weekend for football to hang out with people. I mean, this was like insane. I would say probably like in some level like a historical weekend for football, right? I mean, every single game was exciting as hell.
I mean, we had 3 away teams win on last-second field goals, and then one of the most improbable endings you'll ever see to a game. But did it really seem improbable at the time? Like, it was in everybody's back of their mind. They still have 19 seconds, so it wasn't
That's
like it
true.
was just. Yes, it was just. It's really just kind of what the NFL is becoming, I think, and just seeing teams like Kansas City and Buffalo, and that's what the model, we always say all the time, what the modern NFL looks like. Having quarterbacks that can make things happen with fast guys, making plays, being aggressive, be damned with fourth down punting, going for it. It was just great to watch and just highly entertaining, and I was sweating, and I had no skin in the game other than my bad bets.
Oh my God, right? I mean, we can start right away. I mean, how wrong was I on Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase being such a transformative pick for that team that they would be here? I mean, we got to see a really incredible upset out there. I mean, Jamar Chase really completely took over that game. It was pretty crazy. And Joe Burrow already is in 2 years just solidifying himself as a I don't know, probably in a top 5 consideration for quarterback next year.
With no offensive line. I mean, the guy is
with
constantly
no
running for
offensive
his
line.
life. Yeah, it's really, really amazing.
I mean, did that game stun you at all? I mean, to me, that was an upset. I really thought Tennessee was just going to have a game plan on how to attack that offensive line and how to shut down Jamar Chase, and they came up completely empty-handed.
Well, I mean, I bet on Cincinnati, so no.
Okay.
No, but seriously, to me, it always comes down to, in a playoff game, I have my basic axiom of better coach, better quarterback. And Ryan Tannehill is a nice, serviceable quarterback. He's a type of guy that, I know they were a 1 seed, but he's average.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow is something special. And they're relying on Derrick Henry, who hadn't played in weeks and weeks to weeks, all of a sudden be back in 100% form, and he was fine. I mean, there were times in the game he was taking over, but
it wasn't that slow grind down though.
No,
you know what I mean?
I mean, if you watch large chunks of this game, you saw the pass rush that Tennessee had, and Burrow was running for his life the entire game, and things. You would think that this would be a blowout in Tennessee's way, but Cincinnati made plays, and you have a Gator kicking the game-winning field goal at the end. So,
I mean, you had a lot more skin in the game for the San Francisco-Green Bay game, and that one to me was truly surprising. Now, I could have seen Cincinnati beating Tennessee, but I really, really, really struggled with the idea of San Francisco, after all the injuries they sustained the week before, taking on Green Bay in Green Bay, and I mean, I don't want to say they made it look easy, but they made preventing Green Bay from scoring points look pretty easy.
Well, I always say winners win and losers lose, and you know something? I don't know if this is really hyperbole or not, but
is Aaron Rodgers a loser?
No. I was going to say first, that Jimmy G, for all the faults he has and all those 2 or 3 throws a game where you just want to cover your eyes, maybe he's just a winner. I mean, this is going to be a second NFC Championship game in 3 years. And Aaron Rodgers, relatively speaking, for his talent and the talent that he's had on that team, may just be a loser. I mean, It's certainly up for debate by a lot of people, and we're not getting into why other people think he's a loser, but winners win and losers lose. And this just might be the case with both of these quarterbacks. Can I throw one little question for you about the 49ers?
Yeah, go for it.
Everybody's so quick to say that, they're going to move on from Garoppolo moving forward. They have Trey Lance or something. What if the 49ers decide that they want to keep Garoppolo? If he wins next week, they're going to go to the Super Bowl again. He's been to the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years, and they decide they want to keep him. Is Trey Lance the guy that's in play and someone you think could be possibly a get for a team like the Giants? Like, what's his value on the open market?
Well, his value is there. I mean, if you're going to talk about the Giants, I wasn't a fan of his in the draft. So since that's pretty much all I've seen, I'm going on that. And to me, that's not better than Daniel Jones. It's not going to help us. Okay. Therefore, you're giving up assets for nothing. But as far as his value, I mean, if San Francisco feels that way, I don't think it's crazy because you trade him for whatever assets you need because eventually you're going to have to replace Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that Jimmy G is a very, very good game manager, and he is working with a coach that knows how to run an effective offense and utilize his strengths to put him in game-winning situations. And I think that's a very good match, but I don't think it's an optimal match. I mean, it kind of reminds me a lot of Sean McVay and Jared Goff. And eventually what happens is you realize you're not going any further with this quarterback. So they are going to eventually move on from Jimmy G, whether it's with Trey Lance or not. Now, if they decide it's not, they can trade Trey Lance for assets to obtain the next Trey Lance. You know what I mean? The next guy they think is the guy in the draft. Yeah, I think that's a possibility. But I don't know what Jimmy G's current contract situation is like in the coming years. It might be a big factor if it involves keeping other pieces around. They might go with Trey Lance anyway.
Could you see Aaron Rodgers possibly going to San Francisco if he wants out as a landing spot?
I guess so, but I don't know his contract situation either and what it would take to get him. But yeah, I could see that. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Just a couple.
That would be. I mean, in an ironic way. You're asking me? Yeah, of course. That would be cool.
A little out of the box thinking. I mean, he is from the Bay Area. He went.
Oh, I mean, he grew up a huge Niners fan. He said it himself.
Yeah, and he disowned them, and he disowned them when they didn't draft him on draft day. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Moving into Sunday, that Rams-Bucks game went from. I mean, at a certain point, I think we were at the bar at that point. We were early. We were hungry. We were thirsty. I think we had almost started to tune out of that game a little bit until halftime, right? And then there we were back in the game again, clutching our phones and scrolling and. Oof.
And that's our fault because we should know better with Tom Brady. We really should. The guy is just amazing. I mean, it's just the winners win and losers lose. Well, the guy, he may not have won the game, but he's still a winner, and he still did everything he could to get them back in the game. And if we're not even playing that well either, it wasn't a top 10 Tom Brady performance either, but that's just
not even a little bit. I don't think.
No.
In fact, I would say it was more defense. I mean, the Rams were starting to choke it. Is really what started to happen.
That was, people were saying that the final 19 seconds in the Kansas City game was the biggest choke job, but
if LA lost that game, that would have been the biggest choke job.
They did everything they could to try to get that game back. I mean, having Cam Akers fumble. I mean, it's just like, oof.
Oh my God.
It was nice. It was nice to see the two Seminoles just completely choke. In what's it in the corner. It was just great for me personally. But
Matt Gay revenge game too.
Exactly, yeah, which really put the dagger in all of our Buck friends' heart. That was we were at that game 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever it was, when he shanked that field goal.
Daniel Jones's first game. That's right. That's right, his first game.
Yeah.
So interesting thing about Tampa Bay is that Brady might actually call it quits as they're kind of in a bad cap situation, right?
They're in a horrible cap situation. Yeah, this was kind of like they went all in last year and this year, and Bruce Arians said today in his press conference, gave the standard, we don't rebuild, we reload. I don't know. I mean, if this team has to do some shreddings for salary cap reasons, does Tom Brady want to stick around, or does Tom Brady move on somewhere to for one last shot? The guy thinks
San Francisco.
Maybe for San Francisco for a year. Who knows? Another guy who's from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Would they? Now, before we move on, last thing about San Francisco is, if you're the GM, if you're John Lynch, if you have the opportunity to get Brady for 1 year and you're this close, let's say they lose to the Rams, or maybe even they make it to the Super Bowl and they lose again, and they think they're this close, do you kind of gamble the near future for bringing in a guy like Brady? If you don't
I would.
If you don't think Trey Lance is ready, and you don't think Jimmy G's the reason why you can't get over the hump, would you put all your chips in right now? You think that window is still here?
I would start those conversations, sure. See if it's there, because it might be. And if that's the case, I mean, the near future for quarterbacks, and we're going to get to this in the second half of this episode here, but the near future for quarterbacks is not like, and that means, for them, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and whoever is in this draft, it's not that great. So if you choose to move on from all of that right now for a legitimate shot, and obviously we think Tom Brady brings them a legitimate shot at a Super Bowl at this point, I would do it. I mean, I don't know the situation with all of their roster and who's got expiring contracts, and if this is like a final push for them, or if they've really got sustainability going forward. But if they do, absolutely. Would you not?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard. Usually that's kind of a storyline and a narrative during a broadcast. It's like we've heard it with the Bucs a million times. Part of that's because Brady's so old. Like, is this the end of the road? But when you watch a 49er game, you don't really hear those things. You hear up-and-coming team, and they've rebuilt, from, being in the Super Bowl 5-6 years ago, hitting rock bottom, being back up again. And it doesn't mean they're giving up on Trey Lance. It's just like, if the opportunity's right now, and you can't wait for Trey Lance, do you make the move to – because winning one Super Bowl, they're very, very hard to win. And ask teams like Buffalo, ask Minnesota, ask these teams that have never won one. And when you're this close, you make the push to get them.
The future be damned.
Hell, the future.
Yeah. So then, if Tom Brady leaves Tampa, does Bruce Arians as well?
Bruce Arians is getting old. He is old. I think he had a cancer scare, I believe. He's had some health issues also. There's nothing for him really to prove anymore. I mean, the guy, he won a Super Bowl. I don't think he wants to hang around. He said that in his own words, we rebuild, we reload, we don't rebuild. So that kind of implies to me he doesn't want to rebuild if he has to. So I think he would probably move on as well.
Yeah, and that really is the turmoil left behind, huh?
And I said this to my friends, all the Buck fans that I'm friends with, that you realize, of course, you're selling your soul to the devil for the next 2 years. Never mind that you're bringing in Brady and Gronkowski, who you cursed out for 20 years. But this is not part of a plan for a long-term sustainable run. This is, we're going for it right now. And really, I thought it was maybe for 1 year. I mean,
that's what I thought, yeah. Even
squeezing a second year, water out of the rock is probably more than most people thought. So, I think they probably have to start all over again. Their cap story is pretty bad as well. They're going to do a lot of shredding. The team has built a lot of veterans. But something, they won one. And again, if you're Buffalo,
I mean, it's worth it.
Of course it is. No debates at all.
And speaking of Buffalo, that was probably the most insane game. I mean, we don't have to really recap it at all. I mean, we know, everyone knows at this point. It was absolutely insane. I feel dreadful for Josh Allen because he really did. Somebody said it that perfectly on Twitter, and I don't know, just that he played perfect and they still lost. It's kind of true, and it's kind of the story of Buffalo, right?
Yeah, I saw something else so funny on Twitter that the 19 seconds, Dak Prescott's quarterback sneak took longer than those 19 seconds did.
Something like, I think it was, I don't know. It's something, something like that. Yeah, there was, but there was, I saw something else that said, don't ever let a woman tell you that 13 seconds isn't enough time or something like that. So, but I mean, insanity. What Patrick Mahomes can do with 19 seconds.
You got. I mean, the big takeaway for me for this game, unfortunately, is the discussion about the overtime rule and just. I guess officially, for the record, how do you feel about the overtime rule? Do you think it should be changed? Do you like it the way it is? What's your feeling?
I'm not saying that there isn't a better way to do it, but I think the substandard, half-assed, lazy response to say a coin flip determined this game, it's just lazy and it's not offering anything. And I don't agree with it. I mean, you pay 11 guys on defense to play defense at the end of the day. And I know it's an offense-driven league, and I know that the defense is at a disadvantage or whatever, but this is the playoffs. This is football. I mean, at a certain point, it's not as if a field goal ended the game. All they had to do was stop them. I mean, it's not easy, and I'm not saying it whatever, but I don't have a general disdain for the rule the way it is. Like I said, I think it could probably be better. I'm not really sure what that way is, but I just think the idea of complaining that a coin flip changed it is useless to me, because otherwise you're just saying that defense is academic and points are to be expected and whatever. I mean, that's when you pull out all your stops. In a divisional game, your defense, I mean, this should be your finest play calls. This is your moment. The same way it is on offense. So I don't buy it, and I'm fine with it the way it is for now.
Jane, you ignorant slut. For you people that are old, that's an old Saturday Night Live skit.
I know.
Okay. See, my thing is always about fairness. And to me, the defense is usually exhausted by the end of a game. So you're not getting the defense at its best at the very end. Offense has the advantage anyway. They know what they're trying to do. Defense job to stop it. I just, it is unfair that a coin toss kind of.
But it doesn't.
You're in so much of an advantage. It's a huge advantage, and there's no other sport where each team has an equal opportunity in extra time to score. I mean, it's just almost like you're saying you're changing the game to be like one team is trying to score, one team is trying to stop them. If one is successful, one is not, we're done. In every other sport, in baseball, the away team, they hit first, they hit a home run, okay, bottom of the inning, they have a chance to tie it. There's no
That's because you can only score on one side.
Well, I mean, but it's like telling a pitcher, well, pitch better.
No, it's not, because you can't score on defense in baseball. That's the only way you can do it in baseball. It's not a good analogy.
Right, but unless you have a pick six for a touchdown or something, the scoring on defense doesn't apply in overtime.
It doesn't matter.
You have to stop them.
You can stop them, or you can score on defense. You can't in baseball. I mean, it would be literally impossible to win a game if you didn't give both at-bats in baseball. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's not a fair comparison.
It's basically the same thing. Because
it can't be on its face. It just can't be. I'm sorry. Baseball's a bad analogy. Your better analogy is soccer or hockey, because you play defense and offense at the same time. That's your better analogy, and that's a fair one.
Okay, so how many games in overtime have ended on a defensive score?
I don't think that's relevant, because that's not the only way to do it. You can also just stop them. You have two shots. You have two ways to win. You can either stop them and go on offense and score, or you can score on defense.
Right, but without having 50% of your game, 50% of your team not even have a chance to match what they did, it makes no sense. It's beyond comprehension to me why that is allowed to happen. And I've hated this rule forever, ever since there was overtime. And the rules were even worse before. I mean, before it would just go 40 yards and you kick a field goal, game over. That was just beyond asinine. At least in making the offense earn a touchdown to end the game. But I don't know. I think there's so many different ways that are more fair and, quite honestly, more exciting. If we want the pure entertainment factor of a game. I mean, you could do anything like the college system. You could do, you can make it more fair you can make it more fair for the away team, and this is something interesting for the playoffs to give them a real home field advantage of they always get the ball first in overtime. That way you're earning your home field advantages a lot of ways, but I just think every team should have at least one shot on offense. And
I mean, I'm down with that idea is that each team gets a shot, home field gets first shot. That sounds fun.
yeah,
I'm just saying the way it is, I don't have a problem with it.
yeah,
I think it's fair to say the defensive players have to play and they don't have to score. All they have to do is get a stop. They are at a disadvantage, but it's not the same level of productivity is not needed. I mean, a simple thing as an offensive player just getting a drop is monumental for defense, and you don't even have to do anything. A simple mistake on offense even works in your favor. So I'm okay with the way it is. I think it's fine. I think your suggestion is also good. I think that's fair, especially in the playoffs. I have more of a problem with it in the playoffs than any other time. But speaking of playoffs, next week, who do you got? Cincinnati is now at Kansas City. The line is Kansas City -7.
And again, there's a little recency bias. We just saw that Kansas City team. We saw an unstoppable offense. We saw, besides Mahomes, all of these weapons. They're all like super duper versions of Kadarius Toney. Like, he's the guy's a joystick. He's on a swivel, but these guys are all better versions of that. I just find it very hard to believe that they can match score to score with them. I'll give the points and I'll take Kansas City.
I like what Cincinnati's done. I think it's really impressive, and I don't ever, ever, ever want to discount what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase can do together or what Joe Burrow is capable of doing on his own. That said, I think Cincinnati might have overachieved just a little bit advancing this far. I just think as a franchise and in the way they're rebuilding, they're just not there yet to take on something like Kansas City. But what they've already accomplished is absolutely beyond commendable. But I just think even if they were playing at home, this would be hard, but they're playing in Kansas City. I got Kansas City for this one. San Francisco at LA. LA's got -3.5. This one's a little bit more interesting, isn't it?
You know something? I'm gonna die on that hill of Matthew Stafford. Prove to me you're good. Prove to me you're a winner. I've been wrong so far in the playoffs. San Francisco has got that it. Again, winners win. Jimmy Garoppolo, if you were having a draft of all the quarterbacks in the league, I don't think he's going to be in your top 5. May not be in your top 10, but he knows how to win. Having Bosa back and having him healthy is really huge. The Rams have no running game. That stadium could be a 50-50 split in fans. I did see that.
They blacked out ticket sales for everything outside of the greater LA area, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that, and remember that the Niners were there a couple weeks ago when they had to win to get in the playoffs and everything, and they'll make the trip down. I'm going to say it again, and I'll probably be wrong again. Matthew Stafford proved to me you're a winner, and until then, I'll take the points. I'll take San Francisco.
I could see that one. Yeah, I don't know. I do think that both of these offenses, whether McVay's or Shanahan's, is going to score points against Kansas City. That's what I think. The difference is which one of these defenses is going to be able to stop Kansas City. That's going to be the most interesting thing to me. That's kind of irrelevant for right now. I just think that's interesting either way, is that either one of these teams is probably going to score points against Kansas City. They are just offensively designed so well. I'm going to go with LA in the points here, but only because I think San Francisco is just still banged up. And I think the injuries are just working against them at this point. But I could be easily coaxed the other way. It's still very, very early. And that said, it's not too early to get your bets in. So DraftKings Sportsbook is officially live in New York State with mobile sports betting just in time for football playoffs. Right now, you can place a bet from anywhere in New York with DraftKings Sportsbook, including from the comfort of your couch. To add to the excitement, DraftKings is giving new customers a special offer that you don't want to miss. Bet just $5 on any playoff game and win $280 in free bets if your team is victorious. The wait is over. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now to check out all the DraftKings great promotions and features, including same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use our promo code JustGiants and get 56-1 odds on any team. Bet just $5 and win $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code JustGiants this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full details. Must be 21 years or older and physically present in New York. Gambling problem? Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369.
All righty. We will be betting a lot. We will be betting a lot this weekend, Grump. Trust me.
I mean, this is the time to do it, man. Your team's out of it. The best thing you can do is sit back and enjoy, because otherwise you end up miserable like us. So that brings us into the current situation of the New York Giants and how to fix this mess. On the screen before you, if you're watching on YouTube, which you should be for all this offseason material, you will see a graph of the Giants' depth chart as it stands, with expiring contracts in red and other contracts that are remaining in white. So you can get a good visual of just how bad this roster is, while we go through our little plans here to how to fix this team. So, Cranky, I want to let you go first because I know you are a big picture guy. So give us the big picture.
Yeah, our homework assignment for this week was, if Grump or I were the GM of the New York Football Giants, what would we do to fix this team? What's our plan? So we each took a different tact on how to do this. I did it more of a big picture vision statement, like what are I call them the 6 pillars of what I would do. Grump is going to give you his plan, which is a little more tactical, which is, we love Grump for, and that's what he brings to here. But I'm going to start
I'm a Navy SEAL, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So what I have in my hands right here, this is the plan to fix the New York Football Giants. 6 parts. We are right now, I'm going to pretend I'm Joe Schoen. I'm the GM. What am I doing? The first thing I have to do before I do anything is obviously hire the head coach. What kind of head coach do I want? I want a young guy, offensive-minded, comes from a progressive offense, who believes in analytics to help him with his decision-making and just his overall philosophy. I mean, just look at this. Look at the games yesterday. Look at Kansas City and look at Buffalo. Those are teams that are, it's 4th and 3. They're going for it. They have the confidence in their quarterback. They have the confidence in their schemes. They're going for it. Winning football means you have to have the ball more and give you more opportunities to score. And to me, this outdated system that the Giants have done forever of like, okay, it's 4th and 2. Let's be conservative. Let's pin them back. Let's make it harder for them to score. Doesn't work in this league anymore. You have to be progressive. You have to go on the attack and go for the kill. So I would go out there. I don't want a retread coach. I don't want a guy that's failed 2, 3, 4 times. I don't want a guy who, is a safe pick. I want a guy who comes from an organization that has proven already that they are on the forefront of offensive expertise, offensive genius, offensive excitement. Because not only do I want to have an efficient offense and one that's going to score a lot, I also would like to be entertained. We spend a lot of money, a lot of time talking about this stupid team, taking the train out to the Meadowlands, sitting in the cold. If they don't win, they're not going to go 16-0. But damn it, the games they lose, I'd still like to be entertained with a good-looking offense at least. So that's my first pillar. And that's before I do anything else, I need to get that coach on board so we can start working together like this. We need to be in sync. I know, as Bill Parcells said, someone supplies the groceries before I can cook. I want those two working together so I'm getting the right groceries so I can cook the right meal for this team.
So does that mean that guys like Brian Flores, Dan Quinn, Lou Anarumo, who was also interviewed, Leslie Frazier, those guys are off because they're defensive guys.
That would be, in my preference.
That's fine.
Not,
I'm just
not that
asking
they're
you.
not that they're out, but they are certainly not preferenced.
Gotcha. Okay.
I want to cast a net, and I think, what was Abraham Lincoln said? He had his cabinet of his enemies. I think it was, I forget the exact term, but he wanted to have.
He wanted an offensive young guy with a modern offense.
Exactly, and Edward Stanton was like, no, we need to have defense. He was Secretary of War, or St. John's. But
yeah,
no, I want to have my interview process where I want to challenge what my thought process is, because somebody might be out there who might just wow me with, their philosophy and their insights and things. But, and again, this is not written in stone. I'm not
it's a
Moses
cocktail
coming
napkin,
out
I
of the
think.
mountains. This is written in paper with pencil. Vera Bradley pencil, replug. But I mean, this is my basic guidelines of how I.
All right, move on. Give me 2.
Number 2. I don't want a no knee-jerk reaction to the roster. We're cutting everybody right away. I want an honest evaluation of everybody in the organization. Players, coaches, scouts, everybody. Do they fit the philosophy of what we're trying to do going forward? Because we're probably going to be shifting. Now, if it's GM Cranky Fan, we're shifting the philosophy of this team, offensively overall. So I want to make sure they fit this philosophy when I do. And I also want to make sure I want to evaluate and make sure that these guys are good enough for this system I want to do too. So, does the people on this current roster, do they fit, the culture of what the GM and the head coach are looking for as well? Are they the right fits and everything? So to me, I know a lot of people are out there are like, I'd get rid of everybody. Just start cutting away, salary cap, be damned, cut. I want this to be a very thoughtful process, because this is not an expansion team. We are not filling 46 roster spots. There is some talent on this roster. The injuries and the coaching and all that other stuff impaired our overall vision of what we have, but we have diamonds in the rough here. So I want that evaluation, which should start really as soon as the head coach and the coordinators are installed, to take place. And I want it to be done right and thorough and thoughtful. Number 3, once I do that, I want this organization to establish some timelines. Timelines when it's realistic that this team is ready to be a playoff team. Timelines when it'll be realistic for this team to be a Super Bowl contender. The big problem this team has had in the last decade or so is they don't have a timeline. They were like, we still have Eli, let's try a little longer. They weren't looking short-term and long-term properly. Even this year, we almost made the playoffs. Nobody believed this team was a playoff team. They made some moves that might have been like, let's get us over the hump to make it to the playoffs, but maybe at the risk of what a long-term vision for this team needs to be. We talked before about San Francisco. What's their window? There really is no window with the Giants. It was just kind of make some moves to try to get into the playoffs. I think after that, number 2, that honest evaluation of this roster and what we have, then we start thinking, should we start rebuilding this team with the thought of, we're only about a year away from making the playoffs, or are we really 2-3 years away? That will really guide the decision making in the draft, whether we trade down and try to get more picks, who we're trading. It'll make our decision on who we're cutting, current salaries going forward. So I think it's very important that this vision of being realistic and being honest with yourselves. And I think the best thing that can happen is bringing outside people in, because I think if they would have brought in, Kevin Abrams or something, that vision is skewed because of biases towards who they've already picked and all that stuff. So I think number 3 is very important. I think it's going to happen because we have outside brokers coming in who have a fresh pair of eyes with everything.
All right, hit me with 4.
Number 4, I'm open to any offers for trades for anybody. That includes draft picks, current roster, and I'm not just talking about even for trading guys for current salaries to get off the books. I'm talking about who we may need to trade going forward also. To me, there is not one person on this roster, with the possible exception of Andrew Thomas, who is untouchable. I think that 4 goes with 3 very, they go hand in hand almost.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody comes to me and desperately wants a quarterback, and it happens every single year in the draft, I'm not saying screw you. I'm staying at number 5. I'm taking this tackle or this edge rusher, and the hell with it. I'm listening. And I think once we've established, if they have an honest assessment and say we are further along away than we think we are, consider those trades. So being open-minded in the trade market coming up, starting with this draft, I think is very important. Number 5, Daniel Jones. Thinking about Daniel Jones. I would not pick up the 5th-year option for him, but he is my quarterback next year. I think you need to do an honest evaluation, use that whole year as an evaluation on him. The assumption is we will be hopefully healthier than we were this year. The assumption is we will probably be getting an offensive lineman or 2 to help, either through the draft or free agency, somehow maybe a cheap free agent, just to help make this offensive line better. The expectation is, if we're doing my program, we have an offensive-minded head coach who has an offense that may work with Daniel Jones. I mean, I was watching the Buffalo game yesterday and just kept thinking to myself, Daniel Jones is obviously not Josh Allen, but I could see him running this offense. I mean, I could see him being better as a quarterback running that offense than what we're trying to do lately.
I agree.
So, yeah. So, to me, and then in this year, you also using for a health evaluation. Is the guy going to get hurt again? Trying to run an offense. Josh Allen ran a little bit. We know that Daniel Jones can move a little, but every time he runs, he gets hit and he's out. I mean, you use next year for that evaluation. Again, overall health and quality of the offensive roster is going to help into this determination of Daniel Jones as well. If we like what we see in 2022, if he shows he can be, healthy for 16 games, if we see potential, the coaching staff sees they can work with him in the scheme they're trying to do, well, then you franchise him and you work towards getting a new contract that makes sense for both sides. So you're not stuck with a franchise tag with him and really screwing up your roster. But Daniel Jones, to me, is still an incomplete. I see some things that I really like the New Orleans game. I see a lot of things I don't like, but I don't know. A lot of things I don't like are not necessarily his fault. So number 5 is Daniel Jones. We wait and see with him. We evaluate.
Okay.
And number 6, I build inside out. This offensive line, to me, I'm acting like Gates and Lemieux are not coming back at all. They probably will, but who knows, how effective they'll be coming back from big injuries. I have to start by building this offensive line. And I know it sounds cliche. I know we've been saying it, but it's just, you can't stray from that. I mean, Dave Gettleman said building the hog mollies, and then he starts drafting Kadarius Tonys in the first round and things. So he went away from his axiom, his pillars. I mean, defensive line, same thing. We need an edge rusher on this team. We have to think about replacing Dexter Lawrence at some point because his contract's going to run out. What do we do for him? We don't want to be in a situation where we're trying to catch up. We'd like to probably draft somebody that can be potentially his replacement. I think you build that way more. I mean, this is also going to depend on what we do for a defensive coordinator. Are we going to stay with a 3-4? Are we going to be more traditional? I don't know what we would do. Then work on rebuilding your linebacking core. I don't know. I don't know how comfortable I am feeling with Ragland and Crowder as my starters next year. I think it has to be addressed. So I think you worry about your core, your inside, the lines, linebackers. Then you worry about the outside guys because this team needs to be built. It's to be rebuilt. And those are the things that are the hardest to accumulate. You get them now and you build around that. So that is my 6-point plan for getting this, establishing the foundation for the rebuild for this.
I'm on board with Honest Abe here. I mean, this is a good plan. I'm right there with you. Modern offensive coach. You don't go through with a complete fire sale right away. You give yourself an honest evaluation. I especially like the idea of establishing timelines. Right? If you have a vision, and you're truly tearing everything down and starting over, which is what we're doing here. I mean, we fired everyone, so you need to set up timelines. You need to start reaching some deadlines and goals and achieving them, because without deadlines, you can take your time, you can change your mind. You've got to push to move forward. So I especially like that.
And at the same time, you're not rushing decisions, because if you think
right,
we are legitimately 2 to 3 years away from making the playoffs, you're not going to in year one make decisions that are trying to rush the process when you know that's not legit. So it works both ways. It doesn't give you all the time in the world to do something, but at the same time, it doesn't make you do dumb decisions now.
All right. I want to switch over to mine, which is a little bit more in depth, because I don't know who's going to argue with you on yours. I mean, absolutely brilliant, right on point. Seriously,
I think they need to be said. I mean, it's just something.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, obviously, we're going to start right away with hiring a head coach that shares the vision for this team as the GM. Joe Schoen's got to hire a guy who's got the same ideas as him. And that, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that vision involves scoring lots of points, utilizing a modern offense, and making a defense that can create pressure. I mean, these are very general things that I'm saying. They're not very specific. And because I don't know who the head coach is going to be, I'm just going to speak in somewhat generalities going forward, while also diving into very specific things. So this is kind of like, I don't know. It's just kind of a general thing, and basically how I would be doing things. For starters, you have to decide where you're at with Daniel Jones. And for me, Jones is probably not the guy, right? But also, there's really nobody in this draft that I want, I don't think. At this point, January, where we are, I'm not seeing a quarterback. I'm not hearing names about quarterbacks that are the surefire guys. There's no Kyler Murrays in this draft that I know of. I mean, it's still early, whatever, but that's my current view of the matter. Now, what that means for me is that Daniel Jones, don't fuck with him this year. Don't bring in a veteran that's going to push him for playing time. Don't reach in the draft for anything that's not there. Roll with Daniel Jones this year. And what that means for you is keep acquiring assets for the next year. Get yourself a second first-round draft pick in 2023. You are going to need assets to get your quarterback, because I guarantee you Daniel Jones is not that guy. But if I'm wrong, you have lost nothing by gaining an additional first-round draft pick. So my philosophy is, when you're not sure about your quarterback, keep kicking the can down the road. Keep getting 2 first-round draft picks. Keep trading back until you're in the year where the guy you want is there. You have the ammo to go get him. And that could be a veteran that's shaking loose like a Tom Brady, or somebody younger probably. I don't know. But it could be a guy that you could trade for. You can trade that asset for to get someone out of a situation they don't want to be in. Or it could just be trading up in the draft for the guy that you do want.
And Grump, there's 2 advantages to doing just that. Number 1, he's not getting paid that much. And number 2,
he's cheap.
And number 2, you're not a quarterback away from making the playoffs. So it's not like you are stalling progress. We're not losing a year of the window because of Daniel Jones. We can kind of play him out, and we're not slowing anything down from a quarterback perspective. As we build more assets, then that decision has to be made. But right now, there's no rush to get rid of him.
Right.
Save the money, save the draft pick, build around it, and then we'll worry about it then.
Now, the next thing you have to do, we have to figure out the cap, and it has to happen early because you need it to start happening before the draft. That said, I'm open to trading players or picks. I mean, there's certain guys that you think when you're like, we need to cut people to save money. Most of the guys that come to mind right away are actually kind of untouchable. I mean, the dead cap will offset so much of their cap hit that it won't actually be worth it to lose the talent you have. So the guys that immediately come to mind, like Kenny Golladay, Adoree Jackson, even Logan Ryan, Leonard Williams, these guys are kind of in a no-cut year. You're just going to have to live with them. So the only thing you can do to dump their contract is going to be to trade them for something. Assets, I don't know. It could be anything. That's the only way you're going to get rid of those. So you're going to have to find ways to cut the cap the other way. For me, the obvious candidates are Sterling Shepard, Kyle Rudolph, Riley Dixon. Sterling Shepard is going to be a heartbreaker, but he's coming off of a big injury. He's in a financially good year to cut him in terms of the cap. And you've kind of already drafted his replacement with Kadarius Toney, or at least a potential replacement there. So that one's a no-brainer. Kyle Rudolph's a no-brainer for me too. For what he's offered this team, you can get somebody for dirt cheap to do that. I mean, he hasn't done nothing so far, so get rid of that contract. Riley Dixon, same story. I don't think he's making insane money or whatever, but you can get anybody to punt the way he's punted for less. And I'm not going to get into hypotheticals on who you could replace him with. Anybody, any punter can punt the way he punted for us. So those are the big ones, but that's still only going to create enough cap room for about the draft class, because that's only going to get us to around 15 million or something. So you're going to have to make a tough choice between James Bradberry and Blake Martinez. And for me, that tough choice has to be Blake Martinez. He's coming off of an injury. Even though he's only going to save $8.5 million versus Bradberry's 11, Bradberry is at least playing up to what our expectations were. I'm not saying Martinez hasn't, but you've got to get rid of one of them. I'm going to get rid of the one that's coming off injury. That's just the way I'm going to have to do it.
And quarterbacks are harder to get on the open market. They're more expensive, too. So
I think they're also harder to nail in the draft. I think they're way harder to figure out in the draft. So, those are the cap things for me. Okay, cool. Now we're in a situation where we can sign a draft class. We can maybe bring in some depth. For me, the next couple years, our free agency should only be getting veteran depth while we draft the starting talent. That's what I want. That said, you can do a little gap bridging here. You can sign one guy, and I would suggest it be to the offensive line, to a minimum 2-year deal, something small, but somebody who's a legitimate starter. You're not going out there to get a Patrick Omame, and you're also not blowing your load on a Nate Solder. Get somebody like the center from Tennessee, Ben Jones. He's coming up on this is his contract year. You could probably get him for about $5 million a year. I've cleared enough space to do something like that. Excuse my cat. All right. So that's kind of set you up for the draft, okay? For me, your first move has to be a tackle. You're in a spot to get a tackle. Tampa Bay has shown me you get the tackle early on that could probably play left tackle, but it's definitely going to handle right tackle, and you're set up. Now, if you've done that, you've got a good left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You've drafted your right tackle. I've just signed you a center. You should be feeling a little bit better about the offensive line with those two moves alone, because between Nick Gates, Shane Lemieux, you've definitely got depth there, at some point, but you might have your worst offensive line starter right there, and that's not so bad,
and also, you don't have to rely on help. So much of the problem we found this offensive line is having to help the right tackle with the guard. It's just creating problems everywhere. It makes the rest of the line weaker. If you have two foundational pieces on both tackles, it lets the guards do their thing as opposed to having to help out on either side.
Right. And so we've got these two early picks, 5 and 7. One of those picks I'm using on that right tackle spot. It needs to happen, by the way, because I have Nate Solder here in white, but that's really a surefire red. He will be gone. Matt Pear also just tore his ACL, in addition to not really being good anyway. So it's got to happen. It has to happen, period. Now, that might be 5, that might be 7, but either way, one of those two picks, I want you to trade back. We need to get those assets for next year. You need to have 2 first-round picks because Daniel Jones probably isn't the guy. You have no idea what quarterbacks might come out next year and what they might do. You might have a Joe Burrow year. You don't want to be that guy that didn't trade back and doesn't have the ammo now.
Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Correct. So I know that the temptation is going to be there for an edge rusher, and it sucks to suck, but here we are. We don't have the luxury to just build everything all at once right now. That's just the facts of the team. So blame it on the last regime if you want.
That goes to your timeline, Grump. It's just like we're not 1 year away, fix all our problems in 1 year. This is going to be a multi-year process.
Yeah. So like I said, sucks to sucks. Blame the last president. That's just kind of what you got to do. And you can probably trade back into the middle of the first round. Again, you're getting that first round pick for 2023 as well. That middle of the first round, you're probably thinking, get that center from Iowa, whatever. I'm saying you replace Blake Martinez with Devin Lloyd in Utah. I'm saying this is a very specific thing, but that's my hope, is that he's viewed as that guy at that time, because that's such a seamless transition. But right there in the middle of the first round, my best advice is to replace either Bradberry or Martinez, or get yourself somebody that you know is perfect. It doesn't have to be an O-lineman, but you have to think about the defense a little bit, because we probably sliced a little bit more than we wanted to. But that's really all I'm going to focus on for defense. For the rest of this draft really should be about making an offense, because That's the only way, A, you're going to evaluate Daniel Jones, and it's the side of the ball that needs the most help. And quite frankly, it's an offense-driven league, period. You should be using your most valuable assets on your offense. That's just how the league is now. So this is going to be my only move for the defense, is to get that inside linebacker to bolster that core there. In the second round, I'm thinking maybe if you're lucky enough to have a big edge rusher there, you can go that route if you want, but I'm not really thinking that right now. Right now, I'm thinking you're probably going to get yourself a center or a guard, because all centers are guards. And if you get yourself a center, you've got your replacement for when Ben Jones is done in 2 years, or you can only use him for 1 year. You just play him at guard for a year. That's fine. You've already you've upgraded the offensive line so much with such minimal work. Now it's time to start getting depth. And from rounds 3 on, really all I'm worried about is fixing the tight ends, because that's probably a good place to get some tight ends. And then you're going to start trying to replace those big contract guys. Adoree Jackson is a press corner. If you can find yourself another press corner kind of dangling there in the 3rd round, get him. Get him. You're going to need him anyway. But if he can push Adoree Jackson, you can get rid of that contract. You can get rid of Bradbury next year. You might even be able to cut Bradbury after camp. You don't know.
Sure.
Logan Ryan, a versatile safety, you could probably find that in the 3rd round. You can get rid of that contract probably. If not this year, then next year, and you can move on seamlessly into the night. More inside linebackers, but probably, tight ends is what we're going for here a little. We're going to have to find some tight ends here, and you don't have to get something flashy. You get yourself some blocking tight ends first, and you've also helped the offensive line, right?
A little that's going to depend on,
what's there. I understand, but
and also what offensive coordinator, what type of, how they value the tight end as well. But I get your point for sure.
Yeah, I just think that you're more likely in these rounds to be seeing those guys. All of these guys are going to be able to catch passes, but guys that for sure can block, that's what you're kind of looking for now, because we need it, and it will help this offensive line grow. Now, to me, the real genius of fixing the offensive line is, A, obviously it allows you to evaluate Daniel Jones, but there's one more move you might be able to make, right? If you can really significantly upgrade this offensive line, you can bolster somebody's trade value. Saquon Barkley. There is no position like running back, like the way the NFL is utilizing it right now, as hired guns. We see it with Leonard Fournette. This is an easy. Any team ready to make a push that thinks they're a running back away, Todd Gurley or something like that, you can trade him. It's a 1-year rental for a team making a push.
We were just talking about the Rams, and they can't run the ball. You think Saquon Barkley would look good in LA right now?
Absolutely. So you get him to start performing behind an offensive line next year. You give him 5-6 games. They're still before the trade deadline. You start getting those trade deadlines, start listening to offers. Because if you fix the offensive line, then I'm sure Devontae Booker is running pretty well, and any other running back you've got on the roster is going to run pretty well also. And what are we trying to win this year anyway? So
Grump, you are not a long-term Barkley guy. You are a move on from him if the opportunity presents itself.
I would like to be a long-term Barkley guy. I like him. I don't think it's financially feasible. I would have liked to have Barkley at the start of his rookie contract in 2023 or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
And that goes back to our timeline also. We're still 2-3 years out from the playoffs. In 2-3 years, Barkley's on year 7, year 8.
Well, the thing is that even his rookie contract with where he was drafted is an enormous contract. So, even on a rookie contract, I don't even think I would. I don't know.
I'm really curious what his market value would be for his next contract, because I think what he's going to be asking for.
The other thing too is, well, the thing is that he's not really up to him what's going to happen with a trade. If he's traded away, he's traded away. And any team that's going to trade for him is going to get him on that 1-year rental.
No, I'm talking about for his next contract.
Yeah. Well, it depends on where he is. I don't know. And it really depends on what this final year is for him, right? Recency bias. Like I said, people will take running backs in the middle of the year because it'll put them over the edge. That's my big thing here, is to get something for him where you'd otherwise get nothing, because I don't think that they're going to get anything out of him after this year, after
I agree.
2022.
I agree.
And like I said, from 2023 on, 2023 is when you're going to start maybe investing in the defense a little bit more, getting guys a little bit more custom fit for whatever the defensive coordinator is, whatever. But really, you want to focus on that offense first because it's an offense-driven league. And like I said, you keep kicking that can down the road. If there's no quarterback next year you want to draft in the first round, there's no guy that you think is the guy, trade back, get a first-rounder in the next year.
There's always going to be a Teddy Bridgewater type guy out there. You can
fill it. Yeah, exactly. What the Giants did with Kerry Collins and Eli Manning was correct. Had Kerry Collins, Eli Manning was the guy. You make the switch. That veteran guy.
Wasn't it?
Sorry, Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner. I'm sorry. Yeah. What they did with Kurt Warner was correct. Yeah, veteran guy, but Eli is the guy.
Hey, that was a great relationship for both of them because they catapulted Kurt Warner and ended up going to the Super Bowl afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, he's still bitter about it, but whatever.
With us?
Yeah, Kurt Warner, I think, has it out for the Giants a little bit.
Yeah, but something, though, playing with us probably got him that next job, which got him.
It absolutely did. I didn't say he was justified in any of it, just saying. So that's my January 2022 vision for how do you fix this mess? And that it's very general. I don't know a lot of specifics yet. I'm very early in the draft process as well, very early in the free agency process as well. And we don't even know who the head coach is yet. So
yeah, we're going to need some breaks. I mean, every team that was really bad got to be really good had some breaks. I mean, Josh Allen dropped a little in the draft, and they got him. Other teams could have picked him. We're going to need a break or two as well, but it's not as hopeless as it seems because I really think, and you believe it also, that we are not starting from position that it appeared to be at the end of last year. I mean, there are nuggets in this roster. We're not an expansion team. So, it's just the question is going to be how do we navigate the minefield of the salary cap and these injuries and things like that. And we'll see how it goes from there. But I think we have smart guys that are all committed, all have the same vision going forward. I think some ground can be made up. I mean, I wouldn't book any playoff tickets for 2022, but, I think this could be a shorter than a longer renovation project than a lot of people fear.
I think so too, and I do agree with you. Obviously, this roster is not as bad as it appeared in the last couple games of the year. I think anyone who really truly watched the Giants knows that. Colin Cowherd may not agree, but he's got other things to talk about, I guess. That's going to do it for this episode. Stay tuned, of course. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at @footballgrump, or @football_grump, at the Cranky Fan. Be sure to follow us on Twitter also with @JustGiantsPod. Subscribe to us on YouTube, all that stuff, because we expect a head coach to be hired in the coming days. And when that happens, we will go live as soon as we can and upload an episode. So that is the best way to be on top of that stuff. Of course, you can subscribe on YouTube. You'll get alerts and stuff like that. That definitely helps. But otherwise, we will be back next week with another episode right here. Same time, same place, Tuesday morning. And we'll see you then. So until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.